You know it's a call of the wild, and it's worth it just to see her smile. She'll wander and wait all the while, when I'll be getting the call of the wild. 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 Riding way back in the station wagon, no seatbelts and away we go. Secondhand smoke filling up the cabin. Daddy's drinking, but he's driving slow. Hitchhiking and we're in luck, riding in the bed of a pickup truck. From this childhood we all grew up. This used to be our reality. Slow ride down so you can see the way the world once used to be. How we survived nobody knows. Take that water from the hose, play it outside beyond the yard, in the streets amongst the cars, all sunburned with a bloody nose. Take that water from the hose. On the roundabout down at the playground, get it spinning fast and then you climb. Running home faster than a greyhound. Dinner's cold and Mom said be on time. Shaking like a Polaroid, I'm so late and she's annoyed. When Dad gets home, discipline's deployed. Freedom with accountability. Slow ride down so you can see the way the world once used to be. How we survived nobody knows. Take that water from the hose, play it outside beyond the yard, in the streets amongst the cars, all sunburned with a bloody nose. Take that water from the hose. All over the halls, asbestos behind the walls, chicken pox and a running nose. Take that water from the hose. Vaccine scars like tennis balls. Boys had guns and girls had dolls. Life was good, the story goes. Take that water from the hose. Slow ride down so you can see the way the world once used to be. How we survived nobody knows. Take that water from the hose, play it outside beyond the yard, in the streets amongst the cars, all sunburned with a bloody nose. Take that water from the hose.
Unmuting helps. How are you tonight? You caught me reading Still Competition by tonight's guest, Robert Lawson. Hope I can be heard okay. But let's bring on board Mr. Super Deeks, our co-host for the evening.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Whoa. I'm good.
Excellent. I can be heard okay?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, Mikey.
Great. I can hear you too. Cheers.
Good.
Happy Friday, my friend. You're wearing your Brent Jensen shirt. Let's get a good look. Yeah. Beauty.
There we go.
We're just praising water from the hose here by your good old pal T-Bone. And our buddy over in England is watching, and he enjoys the lake cam.
Nice.
Meat says I'm a little loud. If anything, I'm a little loud. I can fix that. One moment, please. Audio settings. Oh, maybe I can't. I thought I could. Anyway, I'll just I'll talk quieter. Anyway, good to see you, my friend. We have a very special guest tonight, Mr. Robert Lawson.
Yes, sir.
And he's actually on deck, waiting to be brought on board. Okay. So, you know what? Let's do things right. Let's give T-Bone's music a proper showing, of course, and run the theme song, and then bring aboard Mr. Lawson. How's that sound? Rock and roll. Welcome to the LeBrain Train, everybody.
Ticket to anywhere and a glazed donut to go. All aboard.
The LeBrain Train is proud to present Robert Lawson.
Hey!
Hey, guys.
That appears to be a Kiss Destroyer mask.
Well, we have to be socially distanced these days. I'm taking no chances.
I'll try not to take that personally. That's a beauty.
Hey, just so you know, Robert, I'm double vaccinated, so I'm safe.
Just a single for me.
None for me. I'm recovering from COVID.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
How are you guys doing?
We're okay. I mean, we're definitely past the contagious stage. So there's a 2 to 3 week waiting period after that. And so now I'm clear to get finally I can get vaccinated. So looking forward to it.
Good. Yeah, I know that you and your other half, you've been commenting that you guys have been battling it for a little while now, and just glad to hear that you guys are on the mend. So good to hear, pal.
Yeah, I still have a reoccurring cough, and my wife has not got 100% yet of her taste and smell, but it's a lot better than it was for sure. So
Wow.
we're through the worst of it.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you experienced the taste and smell symptoms that everybody seems to be.
No, I didn't have that. I just had fatigue, really bad cough. So yeah, our symptoms are very different from each other.
Wow. So presumably same strain, just two different responses.
Well, I think I caught it and I gave it to her because we don't really leave the apartment at all. We were going like once a week to the mailbox to ship books. All of our groceries get delivered. We don't leave the apartment. We don't see friends and family. We're like the most strict about this as possible, and we got it. So it just shows that.
Yeah.
I've heard that from a few people. That they've taken all the precautions and still ended up getting it. We've heard that from a couple of friends, Deke? But
yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're feeling better, man. And single shot here, going for the second shot July 31st. So hoping for some kind of return to normalcy. But I currently live in the #1 hotspot in all of Ontario. So go Kitchener-Waterloo.
Right.
Happy day.
Happy day.
But we're not going to dwell. Basically, Robert, this whole show started like a freaking year and a half ago now as a response to COVID for me and Deke and some of our pals just to have something to do on a Friday night. Some people are returning to normalcy, but we're not quite there yet. So I'm happy to have you and talk about some music tonight and maybe some movies and maybe catch a fox on the we had a fox on the webcam like half an hour ago.
Wow.
First time. So you never know. You never know what you're going to see on the webcam there.
Fox on the run.
Fox on the run. But just to introduce Robert to the audience, he is the author of Still Competition, The Listener's Guide to Cheap Trick. You've also done Wheatfield Empire, The Listener's Guide to the Guess Who, and what is it, Rasmus Naz? Is that right?
That's right.
The Listener's Guide to Nazareth. And I love your layouts and the way that you have everything organized by album and so much detail about each release down to the rarities and the stuff that actually never even made it onto B-sides. So kudos to you just for being on the exact same wavelength as myself, because that's the kind of book that I like to read. But Deke, I'll let you take it away if you have any. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, those are the kind of books that I like to read too. So that's kind of why the format's like that, because I like that information. I like the details. I don't like a lot of gossip and just like, the dirt.
Right.
So you don't find that in my books. And when I approach artists or management to talk to them about participating with my books, I try to make that really clear with them. Like, I'm not going to interview any ex-wives and your drug counselors or when you went to AA, none of that stuff. I wouldn't read a book that was just filled with that kind of stuff. That's just not, it just doesn't interest me. So I really try to put the books together that if someone else wrote that book, that's the style that I would like to see. And, there's enough of us music geeks out there who seem to respond to that. So it seems to be working.
100%. I remember the very first music book I ever bought that wasn't Kiss was a book called The Show Must Go On by Rick Skye, the story of Freddie Mercury. And it was mostly about parties and the fabulous parties that Freddie would throw and, relationships. And it was so disappointing to me, so very little about the music. So, threw that one in the old garage sale pile.
Wow. I think it's safe to say we all got hosed on those kind of books. I remember back in 1990 on John Lennon's 10th anniversary of his death, some guy put out a book and I bought it for like $40 hardcover, like so thick. I read it, and then I read a review later on in Rolling Stone, and basically the writer said, "You got to be nuts to buy this big book of bullshit." And after that, I realized no more unauthorized books unless it's coming from the horse's mouth. I'll buy it. Or I'm like yourself, Robert, who wrote the 2 books that I got that are fantastic. And like you said, you left all that drama stuff. You just focused on the music at hand. And great stuff, man. Like, I'm really looking forward to digging into some Cheap Trick with you, because for myself, that was the second band I ever discovered after Kiss in the late 70s. But I was just wondering if we could talk perhaps first about your Nazareth book and your latest one, and then dive into the Cheap Trick, if that's okay with you.
Oh, we lost him.
Hey!
Robert. He'll be back. He'll be back.
Yeah.
We had a good connection there, whatever happened. He probably...
That was the quickest episode ever on the train.
Deke, whatever you asked.
See you next week.
Oh, there he is. Whatever you asked him, obviously, we crossed the line. Obviously, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He's back. He's back. Here he is. Hey, Robert.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know. Did you catch all of his question? It wasn't really a question. He was more laying out his plan of attack.
Plan of attack. So going back to Nazareth, the 3 bands that you wrote about aren't really bands that you would think about books. I mean, it was a great idea and stuff. Like, obviously you're a fan of these bands, but like, what was the drive, especially behind the one book that I still have to get yours is the Nazareth book, and the reception to that, and how did you go about that? Did you just decide one day, hey, I'm going to write about the whole discography of Nazareth, I'm going to and let's go at her and get a publisher? Like, how did all that come about, if you don't mind telling us?
Sure. It's actually what happened is I have my own website of movie reviews and music articles and concert reviews, and I'd written a really lengthy piece on there about Destroyer and Destroyer Resurrected, and it's got some history of Destroyer, and then I talk about the nonsense that the band were saying about the front cover of Resurrected, and then I talk about some ideas of what a real true deluxe edition or an anniversary edition of Destroyer could have been. I was really happy with the article, and then a friend of mine named Martin Popoff called me, and he said, I can't believe the amount of detail in that Kiss article. Like, you've got to start writing books. So for me, when Martin Popoff tells you that you need to be writing books.
Yeah.
So at that point, I remember being in my living room.
Oh, darn. I think he's having a rough connection there. It's a little choppy.
I think so, yeah.
Have you read that Kiss?
I did. I actually went to his website. If you go off his Facebook page, there's a link to it, and you can get to it.
There it is.
Yeah, it's a great read.
This side of the tracks.ca.
Yeah.
Is the website.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to get him back on.
And he also dug into Ozzy and Rhodes as well.
Hey, sorry, Robert. I'm not sure what the issue is. It was looking a little choppy, but I'm not sure whose side it's on.
Yeah, no idea. My wife's running around trying to figure it out. She's my IT.
It's all good.
Thank you from us.
Yeah, thanks.
We always seem to have there's always unforeseen difficulties with somebody. Sorry, you know what? Right. I'm just since we got interrupted. Yeah, well, whatever. You know, we're just chilling out on a Friday. Yeah, since we got interrupted, I kind of wanted to just ask you a little bit about those Kiss Destroyer reviews. I'm obviously a huge Kiss fan, as I alluded to earlier, but
sure.
what was the controversy about the deluxe? Well, not the deluxe, but the reissues cover.
Well, the band and the record label mean that the cover to Resurrected is what the original Destroyer was supposed to be. That's the original Destroyer cover, and I don't believe that for a second. I believe the Destroyer Resurrected cover is a new work that they commissioned for Resurrect. Because we've seen, and I show them on my website, the original sketches that the artist did for Destroyer. But the Resurrected cover is definitely not, like Gene was saying, the record label wouldn't let them use it because it was too violent or something, because there's like a little bit of fire in the background. I don't buy that.
No.
I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing that little tidbit. Oh, shoot. Darn it.
That's going to be one of those nights, man.
It's going to be one of those nights. Ah, shoot. I didn't know that. I had assumed, actually what my assumption was that it was like a prototype cover. That's
well, you have to read it. I read it the other day. It's very good.
Sorry, man. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know.
Hopefully,
did you hear
hopefully
any of my Destroyer talk?
Yes, I heard everything.
Yeah,
I heard everything.
Okay.
Shoot, we're having a really bad connection.
Okay, good.
Sorry, Deke, you take it back because I interrupted you.
Well, Robert, you were saying that Martin Popoff told you to get on it and write a book. And that's how the Nazareth came to be.
Well, sort of. By the way, my wife is working to change my location, so hopefully we'll have a better connection here.
Sure.
Okay.
It's all good, man.
My first choice was actually to do Cheap Trick.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that there already is a book, Cheap Trick. Reputation is a fragile thing. So I passed on Cheap Trick. And then when I realized there had never been a book about Nazareth, and I had a lot of Nazareth CDs. I mean, I had all of them at least twice because I had reissues, and I had a lot of Nazareth bootlegs. I grew up with Nazareth, so that's how I chose Nazareth.
That's cool.
Book, and it got a great reception. And at that point, I'd established a style that was going to be a Cheap Trick book because it'll be different enough from that. I think Cheap Trick are a great enough band that there should be more than one book about them. And the really cool is that the guy who wrote that, Mike Hayes, has since become a good friend. We talk all the time, and we spent a little bit of time together when I was in Scotland. So the two books kind of complement each other because his is more of a biography. Of course, it came out years ago. Mine's more recent, so it covers a lot of albums that he couldn't. And but again, I don't talk about any of the personal details.
Mm-hmm.
Right. As a fan, I that's not why I'm buying the book. I don't care. I'm not saying I don't care, but I'm not interested in reading about what Rob and Xander's relationships were at a particular time. I want to know who wrote the songs and who played guitar and what the fans thought of the albums. That's what I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this connection is really rotten.
Mm.
I'm not sure what the issue is. Can you hear us okay?
We're getting set up to be a lot better soon, guys.
Okay. We just got a tip here from tech support.
I can hear you.
Just advising. Okay. Oh, Deke. It's one of those nights. It's like Andy Curran part 1.
Yeah, it's like the Bluetooth scenario.
The Bluetooth scenario, yeah. So that was the issue with Andy, is that he was on a Bluetooth device instead of Wi-Fi.
The best was, I'll be right back with you, boys. And then that was it.
Gone. Okay, he's back again. So tech support is suggesting making sure you're on Wi-Fi or, if necessary, trying a different device.
We're gonna get off my phone and start using the old PC computer momentarily.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Nice.
Okay, sounds good. If you want, we can just play a music video while we wait. You don't have to kill time.
I'll be back in.
Okay. let's play a music video. We'll give Robert some time to get reconnected.
Let's do that. I'll be back in a minute.
Sounds good.
Sure, man.
Deke, what do you want to hear, my friend?
Oh, what do you got?
We got all the T-Bone songs, and we got all the Max the Axe songs. Let's play a Max the Axe tune. Next plane to Vegas, Max the Axe.
Alrighty.
I can't put my thumbs up. Crown Royal Apple. Slaint.
Hello, Robert.
Hey there.
This is better. I don't know what happened to Deke now. We've lost Deke. He seems to be in a deep fog. It appears to be foggy over there in Thunder Bay. Hey, buddy, we got everybody connected nice now.
Good.
There we go.
All right.
I've been looking forward to this for way too long to have things mess up on my end. But
no kidding. This is so much better. Okay, so let's start afresh. We were just talking about you getting started on that Nazareth book, and you were talking about how Martin Popoff, he's been on the show twice. He's a fantastic inspiration to both of us as well. You were talking about how he kind of gave you that push, and when Martin Popoff tells you to write a book, you don't say no.
Yeah, and the other thing about Martin is that, like, I've known Martin for quite a while. I've been to his office. He shops in my store. But he tells everybody to write books. Like, he's not afraid. He doesn't care about any kind of competition or anything. He wants, if you have that in you, he really encourages a lot of people to do that. I don't know how many people actually take him up on it, but I sure did. And that's why I credit him in all my books, because I don't know if I ever really would have gotten around to doing that. It seems like a big step. But now that I'm in and kind of established a little bit, I I can't imagine not doing it.
That's awesome. And what better guy to not have backing you than Martin Popoff? I mean, the guy's a writing genius. I mean, machine. You know, like, so good.
Yeah, I consider him like my mentor. You know, he's the guy who he got me into it, and I think I call him that in all my book introductions too. But his friendship, like I said, we've been friends for a long time, and it's very valuable to me. So I always appreciate.
That's
another friend of ours, Marco the Contrarian. He was on a few months ago, and he had very similar words about Martin. You know, and he gave us some really good advice when we started off on this show too, and he spent 2 hours with us in total, maybe even 3. I can't remember. Anyway, Martin.
Yeah.
Right.
Martin. Yeah. Thank you for enlightening us all in the details, the nooks and crannies of rock. Actually, nooks and crannies is a great word. I was looking at this book, and it's like, I love how you go into all this detail on the rarities and the B-sides. Like that's collectors. It's what we crave. And I guess my only question for you regarding that was, how much of that stuff that you talk about in these books do you personally own?
Most of it. At least with my first 2 books, I would say that. The Guess Who book was a little tricky. There were some things I was allowed to hear with the promise of not, or I was allowed to have but I had to promise that I would never leak it. And there was some stuff I was just allowed to hear literally, and I could not keep a copy myself. So so that was a little tricky. And there are some real scoops in the Guess Who book. There are some tracks in there that I talk about that hardly anybody outside of the band have ever heard. So in some of those cases, some of the stuff I have, but there's about 6 guys who need to die before I could let them out. There's a list. So because you gain a certain amount of trust dealing with these guys, and I wouldn't want to betray that. So I know it's frustrating for some fans to read this stuff and go, I really need to hear that. How can I hear it? And I just have to tell them, I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. Otherwise, if I get a reputation for a guy who leaks stuff,
right?
I'm done.
Yeah, that's it.
So it's a little tricky, but hopefully reading information about these songs and not hearing them is better than not knowing anything about them at all.
110% agreed. I would rather have some kind of documented description of the tune. So, just for the old mental library, I like those details.
And it can give you hope because they're out there. I mean, maybe you have to wait for me to die and then, contact my wife. There's going to be a huge yard sale on that day.
We'll make sure we get down there for that.
Yeah. Pop-Off's already camped out.
Oh, shoot.
So, speaking of this book, I haven't really done a complete deep dive in it like I did with the Cheap Trick book, but I just wanted to get this because I know about the Guess Who, and hey, there we go. And very well done. And as I quickly skimmed through it, I mean, I was surprised that with all the craziness that went on between Randy Bachman and Burton Cummings over the years in the Guess Who, and then Randy leaving the Guess Who and yada yada, that they would still show up on each other's solo albums. Like it always, I just thought they had that relationship, and there they go. Like they seem to be. Do we say pals?
I probably wouldn't go that far. I think they're they work together.
Yeah, that's
co-worker.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like when Randy left, they had nothing to do with each other for a long time, and then things kind of thawed. And Randy appeared on some Burton albums. Burton appeared on Randy's first or his second solo album, and then Randy appeared on some TV specials that Burton had hosted. I detail those in the book. And then they did a reunion. Well, there was a Guess Who reunion tour in '83, and then there was a Bachman Cummings tour in '86 or '87. And so since then, it's sort of been an on again, off again musical relationship. And obviously, they're doing a bunch of dates in the States this summer.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, like they're legends. So I mean, when they came here on their Running Across Canada tour, I obviously went with a bunch of my friends to see that show, and that was a great show. I mean, they played all their hits. I think Wide Mouth Mason was opening for them, so that was a good night of rock. And yeah, you know what? They brought it. It was neat to see some Canadian history.
Yeah, that was a great tour. They were playing a lot of stuff. It was like a really long show, deep cuts as well as all the hits, and they even did a few BTO songs in there. So that was a great tour. I saw a few dates on that tour actually.
Yeah, and
Robert, if you remember, if you were working in the record store back then at that time too, the double live CD that came out was it did very, very well for an expensive double live.
Yeah, it was. Well, they were just so big at that time. That reunion tour, that was in 2000, and the previous reunion, like I said, was in '83. So I think there was a lot of hunger for it. I was working in a record store at the time. I was working for Tower Records actually at the time, and the day before or the day after that double CD came out, they actually did a surprise gig at the El Macombo here in Toronto.
No.
Which is a tiny, club that holds 75 people or something. And I got into that actually. Wow. Just a sweaty mess of humanity in there, but incredible.
Nice. And that's the cool thing, I've seen like your Facebook postings and even reading in the book. I mean, Burton Cummings, he helped you along quite a bit in regards to the Wheatfield Empire book as well. So it doesn't hurt to have the lead singer of the band in your court.
No, he was a great supporter early on. As soon as I pitched it to him, he came on board, and fantastic. If there was something, I always say, if there was something that he couldn't remember, and there was a couple of things. I mean, we're talking about stuff that happened literally 50 years ago. So in some cases, if he didn't remember something, he would just say, "I don't remember," as opposed to trying to like bullshit me or give me some So I really appreciated that honesty, and he, great supporter. He said some really nice things about the book now that it's actually out. So
that's cool.
And going back to Nazareth, I'm one of these Nazareth. You said you have like all this Nazareth music, and you bought doubles on CDs and reissues.
Yeah.
Well, okay, here's my story about Nazareth. I own 2 albums. First one's Nazareth's Greatest Hits, which everybody should have a copy of.
Yeah.
Right. Second one, I seen you talking about this somewhere else in the past little bit, is this one right here.
Ah, yes.
Love this live album from Vancouver. Dan McCafferty right before Razmanaz, man, when he goes off on that whole "Hey Vancouver," so good. Such a great album. Nazareth, how was your relationship with those guys getting on board for that book?
I did most of it without any input from them. Actually, I was a little, because I was so new to doing this, I was a little afraid to get too close to them because I was afraid I'd chicken out. But I asked a couple of the ex-guitar players some questions on Facebook. But most of the Nazareth book was just like my own stuff, and then I have some fan stories in it too, which is also in the Cheap Trick book. But I didn't do that for the Guess Who book. But I met Nazareth a few years ago. After the show, I was giving Pete Agnew, the original bassist, a copy, and right away he said, "Dan says this is a good book."
Wow,
nice.
Yeah, there you go.
So when my wife and I honeymooned in Scotland, I arranged that we actually spend an afternoon with Dan in Dunfermline at kind of the local pub that I guess he used to hang out at, because he still lives they all still live in Dunfermline where they were born. So we spent an afternoon in there's a beautiful glen, Pinnacreft Park, right across from the pub, and we had a lovely afternoon in there. And then we met Dan for drinks for a couple of hours, which was fantastic.
Wow.
Was that a We're Not Worthy moment for you?
Yeah.
It was pretty interesting because twice, I think I got up to go to the washroom, and I'd come back and just see my wife talking with Dan McCafferty. And I just stand, I'd stand off to the side for a couple of minutes going, how did this happen? A
surreal moment.
And they're not talking about Nazareth or anything. She doesn't listen to Nazareth. Right. So, he's just asking her about like why we came to Scotland and how long we've, been together and just normal conversation stuff. And I'm just standing there looking at it going, wow, this is a trip. This is really something.
That's a great story.
That's awesome. Well, it's always cool when you meet your heroes and they deliver on that promise of being a hero. So
here's a good Dan McCafferty story.
Okay.
I always forget this one. So at one point, Dan takes out his mobile phone and he calls somebody and he gets their voicemail, and I don't know what the name was, but he says, "Hey, it's Dan. Give me a call back. Let me know if you can drop off the kids." And then his friend, or our mutual friend, Richard, who's a really good friend of mine now, asked him, "Who are you calling?" And Dan just says to him, "Well, I called, whatever the person's name was, to see if he can drop off the kids." And I'm thinking that his grandkids are coming over or something. And then Dan turns to me, he's still holding the phone, and he says, "Where are you staying again?" And I realize we're the kids. He's calling some friend of his in Dunfermline, Fife, to drive us. And I was like, no. We're gonna spend we're gonna go have dinner somewhere, and like we don't want to impose with whoever he was calling. I don't know if it was his son or a neighbor or Lee Agnew. I don't know.
You'll never know.
But I really thought he was talking about his grandkids or something. And then that was the realization. We're the kids that he's trying to make sure that we get to our bed and breakfast okay. So lovely man.
Awesome.
That is funny. Maybe I'll jump in with I had a burning question. So you and I share something in common, which is record store management. I managed a record store from 96 to 2006. And I wanted to ask your opinion on something, because sort of my entry into the this world of writing online and whatnot, something I call record store tales. And my adversary at the record store was my regional manager, and she really hated Cheap Trick with a passion. And I got in shit one afternoon for playing She's Tight. And I'm just kind of curious how you feel about that.
How do I feel about your regional?
Getting in shit for playing She's Tight in store. Is this something you would give your underlings shit for if you heard She's Tight in the store?
You know what? I'm really strict about in-store play.
Yeah,
like super strict. But if we have it in stock and we have quantity, then and there's no profanity, then, which is hard these days. But then I have no problem with it. But I've had so many times in my past of walking in the store, hearing something that's being played, and I know we don't have it.
Right.
And when I ask the person, I go, "Oh, it's good tunes, it's a good album." I go, "How are you going to sell anything from this?"
Right, right.
The in-store play is a sales tool, and if you're playing something that nobody can buy, you're actually hurting the business. So I'm pretty strict about that. But at one point, I am probably writing a book called Tales from the Shop that I've been compiling for like a couple of years. And whenever I used to post these stories on Facebook, and whenever I would, all my buddies were like, "Why is this not the next book? You have to do this as your next book." So I'm kind of stockpiling stories, but I already have so many. Maybe it's going to be a 2-volume thing or something, because I've got tons of these, weird customer stories, as we all do when you work in retail.
Oh yeah.
But that's probably going to happen at some point, just because too many people want it.
Yeah, I know. I started by posting what I called record stories on Facebook, and people said, "Oh, you need to start compiling this stuff." And I'm at like 900 chapters or something like that now.
All right, that's a book.
Yeah, right.
That's a couple of books.
but for the record, we had the same rule: don't play it in the store unless it's for sale. And I found Cheap Trick's Greatest Hits to be a good one for store play, but my regional manager basically hated Cheap Trick, and She's Tight was the song that she's like, that's enough, Cheap Trick, okay?
I would never limit what's played in the store based on what I like, because this is also a conversation that I've had hundreds of times probably in the last 30 years. I'm not there to listen to music. You know, I've got too much to do. So what I usually do, I put a CD in the morning, and that CD might still be in there by the time I leave, because I don't care. I'm not there. You know, there's always staff who are like, taking a CD out saying, we've already heard this one. Well, the people that are in here right now haven't. So, you know, you had all morning to listen to your stuff. When you came to work at noon, now we got to make some sales here. So
yeah, typically I would leave the same thing running all afternoon. I wouldn't even just leave it on repeat. I wouldn't even notice when it starts repeating. You know, it's like you lose your track of time because you're just constantly on your feet.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's why she had a problem with She's Tight, Mikey. You probably had it on a continuous loop for 8 hours.
You know what? One morning, we got in the Neil Peart "Burning for Buddy" soundtrack, and I thought I'll really impress my regional manager today by playing some jazz in store, because she thinks that I'm a pigeonhole rock guy. So I put in the "Burning for Buddy" CD, and I didn't even realize that I had the first track on repeat for an hour. Anyway, not to steal Robert's thunder for stories tonight, but that's my. I appreciate that we have this common thread of record store management. So that's a cool thing, and I do not regret getting out when I did. But you're still doing it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. Somebody has to be serving the public the hot and sweaty rock and roll.
I got my first record store job in '86.
What?
And
Wow.
And I've been doing it almost ever since. There was a period about 6 years ago where I was out for 2 years, and I became a supervisor at a Home Depot. And one of the things I liked about it the most was I never had to fight with anybody about in-store play. I was like, I'm so glad that discussion is not a part of my life anymore. And then I got pulled back into the record store thing, and all over again. Here we're fighting over in-store. Well, I actually tell the employees we're not fighting, because I'm not going to change my opinion on this. If it's not in stock, we're not playing it. It's a done issue, you know.
Right. That's again the same rule that we had. If you can't sell it, why are you playing it?
I've told many employees I've already had this conversation with like 24 people before you, and they didn't win. So, you know, count your losses. Let's go sell some records. Don't worry about what's being played right now.
So you've been in it since '86. So you've witnessed like the rise and the fall of the vinyl LP, the cassette, the CD, the re-rise of vinyl. That's incredible.
Yeah, if somebody wanted to make a bet with me if vinyl was coming back like 12 years ago, I would have lost that bet. There's no way it looked like that was ever going to happen. And then it slowly started creeping back in again. And I said, what the hell is this? So, but here we are. There's, you know, now having a vinyl release is almost standard. And the new Cheap Trick, I think, has 3 different variants on vinyl.
Yeah. Which that stuff drives me nuts.
Yeah.
It's like, what color did you get, Deke? Oh, you know, I got red. You know, what did you get, Mike? Oh, I got whatever Walmart's selling.
Right.
Kind of thing. The one's an exclusive to Best Buy. One's an exclusive to Target. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, if you're a completist, you're in trouble.
Yeah. I think that most record stores, I presume Robert's familiar with this strategy, putting the display of the disc currently being played. Yes, we had that where I worked.
Yeah, of course. Every store does, I think. Now playing thing, sure.
Yeah. Harrison's a young fella that is rather new to rock and roll compared to us. It's fun to see these young guys passionate about buying physical product again.
Sure.
That's cool to see.
Yeah.
Although, like you, the vinyl thing, I was working in the record store in 95 when Pearl Jam came, or 94, sorry, when Pearl Jam came out with Vitalogy, the week before the CD itself was released. And it was weird. Like, how do we stock this? How do we display this? We couldn't figure it out, and it didn't matter because we only ordered 5 copies and they were gone that day. So we never even got to display it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Deke. I'm sure you have some burning questions.
Well, I'll chip in, Robert, with is if you do publish that book on Record Tales, you'll have the first pre-order you'll get is from the guy right above you.
Right here, man. Right here. And if you need anybody to like write a foreword or man, like that's just right up my alley. That so consider this an encouragement for doing that book, I hope.
If I do it, I'm actually going to tap into a lot of other managers that I know and ex-employees that I'm still in touch with. So yeah, you made the list.
All right.
Go,
I used to work in a buy and sell environment as well. So, we had the added bonus, like all the crazy stories that you get and you're familiar with. I had the added bonus of having to buy used CDs from crackheads. Believe me, I've got stories.
I buy used product at my store.
Oh yeah, you do, eh?
Yeah.
Back
I don't have any crackheads, but I do have, people who think a used copy of Thriller is worth $300. That guy was fun to deal with.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. We could go on and on there. Believe me.
That's another
cool.
show.
Yeah, that's a whole other show. Well, I strongly hope that book comes to be. I would like to read that for sure.
I'll get on it.
It's funny because anytime I tell people, I used to work in a record store, people are like, oh, man, that was my dream job. And it's like, yeah, I get it. Me too. It absolutely is. But then eventually it becomes a job, just the job part of it. At least for me, that's the way it worked out.
Yeah, I was pretty young when I started, so I would say it was my dream job. And now it's maybe more of a reoccurring nightmare that I can't get out. But no, I still love it. I love it.
Have you guys reopened?
No.
We're
actually, I'm going in next week to kind of make sure that all the computers and printers and stuff are in working shape, and then I think we may be reopening on the 5th, of July, but we don't know 100% yet. But we're inching towards that.
I wish you all the best there. I don't envy anybody working in a retail environment during this last 15, 16, however many months. But, I'm glad that you're looking at the opposite side of it now, hopefully, and the reopening and hopefully not to be closed again. Let's hope.
Yeah.
Deke, you look, are you just enjoying the chit chat, Deke?
Yeah, I'm just along for the ride, boys. It's all good, man.
Oh, there we go. He doesn't enjoy working at Home Depot. No, he does not.
Well, if I did still work at Home Depot, and I did learn a lot there, and I liked working there, but I realized during all of this, that's considered an essential service.
Yes.
So I would have been working during this whole time, and I would not, frankly, be comfortable with that. So, so that actually worked out. Working in a record store kept me home and safe. Although, as I said, not that did me much good.
Yeah. Are you allowed to reveal where you work?
Sunrise Records.
Oh, Sunrise. Okay.
So, I've been with them for about 17 years.
Nice.
Except for that little 2-year Home Depot detour. But it's a Sunrise Records in Etobicoke. Okay. And it's been around for over 12 or 15 years. It's the oldest original Sunrise Records.
Our Sunrise here in KW, well, I'm not here in KW, but where I live in KW, our Sunrise is in a mall, so it has not reopened yet.
Right.
But we're hoping. Haven't been there since before COVID started. I think my last purchase there might have been the big, gigantic Metallica Master of Puppets box set. And don't think I've been able to set foot back in there since. So I'm hoping.
Sure.
I miss those days of just walking in and strolling out with something that you didn't necessarily intend to buy that day. It's an experience I miss.
Sure.
Oh, look at that. He's been there. He's a customer. There you go. supporting the music retail business. Kevin from Buried on Mars. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Whoever you are.
He's a regular. He's a sweet guy from Sudbury.
Oh, great.
And that's the thing. I mean, like here in Thunder Bay, we have the one Sunrise in the mall, and it's been closed forever. So my only option for buying vinyl is Amazon. Record Store Day came last week, so I hit up a record shop in Montreal for basically they were doing online Record Store Day stuff, and it's kind of sucks when you can't actually just go in and hang around for a bit and fumble through some vinyl. But hopefully, here's for better days ahead.
Yeah,
absolutely. The shipping to get vinyl these days it's a little bit hard on the wallet, isn't it?
Well, basically, like the records I ordered last week, I mean, it's for Canada Post, it's $15. So basically, you have to at least find 2 records to make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
Hopefully, get one on sale to eat a bit of that shipping cost. But hey, man, you're like us, like vinyl junkies. You just do it, or you have daughters, that do it for you.
Lucky guy.
So, anyways, Robert. So let's get into some Cheap Trick.
Yes.
Have to tell you, anybody out there, do yourself a favor, go to Amazon or can they go directly to you to get copies off of?
No, I don't have any left of the Cheap Trick book. I sold out of all my physical copies.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's good for you.
So
go
to Amazon or wherever else you can hunt it down and get yourself a copy, because it is a deep dive into the world of Cheap Trick. So how long did it take you? Sorry?
You can also get it directly from the publisher, which is Friesen Press. I'm not sure if their shipping would be much different than Amazon, but you can definitely get it from there.
Ah, cool.
So there's 2 options available for you folks.
Yeah.
Yep. So how long did it take you to put together the Cheap Trick book?
Probably a couple years, although there was an overlap, because what happens when I submitted my manuscript for the Nazareth book, they tell you that it's going to be like 4 to 6 weeks, and that's them going through it. That's them doing the layout, proofing it, just everything that, I mean, they probably do things I don't even know what they do, but it's 4 to 6 weeks. So, it's like I'm working so much on Nazareth every day. And I realized, what am I going to do for 4 to 6 weeks? So I started the Cheap Trick book, worked on it every day for 6 weeks. And then Friesen Press gets back to me about the Nazareth book. So then Cheap Trick gets put on hold while we finish, and we go back and forth on like, well, we want this changed. And I say, well, no, I'm not changing that. And, back and forth we go. And then once I sign off on the Nazareth book and it's going to go to press, then I jump back on a Cheap Trick and keep working away at that. So that was a really kind of a weird thing. And I did the same thing when I submitted the Cheap Trick book, jump right into a Guess Who book. So for a while there, you're actually like writing 2 books at once, which might sound kind of crazy, but it works for me because one of Martin's pieces of advice that he gave me when I started, and I tell this to people who approach me about writing books and trying to get something published, is to write every day.
Yes, 100% agreed.
So otherwise, like Martin said, like your tone could change without you even really realizing it. So if you get something down every day or almost every day, then you should be consistent throughout the whole project. So that's just how I did that. And like I said, the Cheap Trick book has a bunch of fan stories, like the Nazareth book, and a lot of people really enjoyed that. But because with the Guess Who book, I knew I'd be interviewing band members and people who'd worked with them, I decided to leave out the fan stories there. But the Cheap Trick book did really well for me. It made back all of its operating costs within 6 months.
Nice. Nazareth
book made back its operating costs in 9 months. Okay. Cheap Trick, 6 months, and my Guess Who book incredibly made back, and the production costs raise, every 2 years, as paper goes up and stuff. But the Guess Who book, I think it made back its operating costs in like 6 weeks.
Wow.
Like people went crazy for it. But the Cheap Trick book still sells. I monitor the sales every couple of days, and there's still people out there who don't know about it, which is why I like to keep talking about it. There are people who are on Facebook now because of the pandemic who weren't on Facebook before because they worked every day.
True.
So there's always new people, and I see it all the time on social media asking, "Hey, how come there's never been a Cheap Trick book?" And then, me and my friend Mike Hayes, who wrote the other book, we kind of laugh to each other about it a little bit. But, I just keep plugging away and letting people know that it's out there. And
well, we're happy to help you plug, man. I've been enjoying my copy ever since I received it a few weeks ago. Once again, it's the kind of book that I really crave. And another thing I'd like to point out that I really enjoy about your book that you don't find in a lot of other books is that you focus equally on the later years. Whereas a lot of other books, the bulk of it is the early years, and then there's this much about the later years. And yet you go fair is fair, every album.
Yeah, and that's again a personal decision of mine, partially because sometimes I like those later albums just as much.
Right.
Just because nobody's talking about the Rockford album as much as they talk about Budokan, that doesn't mean it doesn't deserve to be talked about. I think it's a great record. And so that's really important to me, that if I'm talking about the band's catalog, I don't get to pick and choose which ones I'm going to leave out or something. That doesn't make sense to me.
Right. And I think that's a problem that you see in a lot of official books. You'll see the bands themselves kind of,
oh, sure.
And it's so disappointing to me. So, just knowing Deke and myself, and the kind of niche people that watch our show, this is the kind of thing that you guys want. Trust us. Yeah. This is our niche, folks. This is us.
Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of official biographies or official autobiographies. These bands like history the way that they tell it. So they get to leave out. We're not going to talk about Done with Mirrors because that was our whatever. That's a great record. You guys sold out after that, you babies. So there's you got to cover all that stuff. You can't just give one album just a couple sentences and say, oh, we didn't really know what we were doing. Some people out there probably really like that record and they want to hear about it too. So to me, you don't get to pick and choose what you're going to talk about like that.
Right. You can't,
if you're going to do it properly.
You can't pull a Motley Crue, The Dirt, and say, and then we kicked Vince Neil out and then he came back in. And that's it. That's the end of the story, folks. That's where we are. Question from a viewer. Where did you get your hat? Did you go to a game in Buffalo?
No, I found someone on Etsy was selling it.
Ah.
So somebody hand stitching them at home, I guess, during the pandemic. And no, I was definitely not going to any game. I don't leave my apartment, so never mind.
I don't know why. I'm assuming it looks similar to maybe a Buffalo hat or an away game hat. I don't know.
It says Buffalo Blue Jays on it.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
And you see instead of the maple leaf.
I do see that now. I just assumed it was a regular Toronto Blue Jays. See, that's why I'm not a sports guy. This is why we have viewers. Thank you, Eric Litwiller. From Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, otherwise known as the legendary Uncle Meat.
Oh, I saw him on an episode.
Yes, he's a legend. That man, he is an absolute legend.
Well, he's got a good eye. He caught the cap.
Oh, sorry, just one moment. Sorry.
Can I get you anything?
Yeah. Coffee refill coming.
Right.
From, from Nespresso.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
That's okay.
cause a pause there.
So, Deke, did you have other Cheap Trick questions?
I got a lot of Cheap Trick questions.
Okay.
But first of all, what are your thoughts on Aerosmith Done with Mirrors?
Oh, shit. This is a bone of contention.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I love it.
No, I love it. What are you talking about?
No, it's between me
Tell
and
that
him.
guy up there.
Oh, that guy. Oh, okay.
I'm the contrarian.
Oh, no, I think I think honestly, it's their last album.
For some, yeah.
For me,
Sure.
I don't listen to. I don't listen to. With almost any band, I have these real strict cutoffs.
Really?
Where after a certain point, I'm out, and I just can't handle it. And maybe I'm missing some good stuff. Whatever. I listen to a lot of stuff that other people don't listen to anyway.
I love Pump, but Done with Mirrors didn't do anything for me.
Well, to me, at least it's their album because they're writing all the songs, they're playing the stuff. You know, once you get past that, like who's doing the backing vocals on "Love in an Elevator"? Nobody in the band is doing that. Those vocals came out of like a box or something. They're like completely programmed. You know, read what Martin says about the later Def Leppard records.
Oh, yeah, I know. Riff Kills Me, he gave, I think, a 0 to Hysteria.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Hello, Mitch Lafone.
Hey,
hello, Mitch. He's questioning why you're here since hockey is on.
Hey, when these guys call, I answer.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
My joke with Def Leppard, which a lot of people on Facebook don't like, is that after the Pyromania tour ended, the guys got all on an airplane to fly back home to the UK, and unfortunately, the plane crashed into the ocean, and they were never heard from again. And they weren't.
You know, you remind me of a buddy of mine who insists to this day that Chinese democracy never came out. It does not exist. Right. Still to this day, I'll be on Facebook and he'll go, "Why are you reviewing an album that doesn't exist?"
I like that guy.
Yeah. I have other friends that for them, Star Wars ended in 1983 and there's never been a prequel or a sequel.
Yeah, sure.
You know, you get it.
Totally. So back to, I guess I threw this last bit of conversation off the loop with going with Done with Mirrors, but back to the Cheap Trick book. I have to say, you know, thanks to our good pal Sean Kelly, who posted it on his Instagram page. That's what got me interested in it, and I went right to Amazon that day because, you know, Sean always like showing off some records and books, and I seen your book and I thought, no way, all on Cheap Trick. I went to Amazon, there it was, and it was like, psh. Right. So once I got it, it was like a weekend read. You know, once I started into it and got right into it, like I said to you earlier, they were the second band that I discovered after Kiss, and there's a lot of stuff in that book that I didn't even know about, and I've been listening to them for over 40 years. So fantastic job. The one part that was really, really interesting, and I like how you wrote it and described it, was Surrender. You know, Gene and Paul, there's Cheap Trick. They're always, you know, they're name dropping us and da-da-da. But how you wrote it about mom and dad smoking dope, listening to your records, you walk in on them, and it's just like your youth culture is just like blown up. You know, I really liked how you put a spin on that. I never looked at it that way. That after you wrote it and I listened to it again, I thought, yeah, it's like the youth is gone because mom and dad are getting into what is yours kind of thing. So
yeah, I don't think it's a tribute. I've said this for years that that mention of Kiss and Surrender is not like a tribute to them or some kind of high praise. Like I know
that's what Gene wants to perpetuate.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but that's that's definitely not the case. It's like surrender. Like I give up. Like my parents are smoking a joint and listening to my records. I'm out of here.
I never picked up on the smoking a joint reference.
Rolling Numbers?
Never picked up on that.
Oh,
I didn't know what that meant. Maybe they were playing dice. Honestly, truthfully. Well, but yeah, like when I was a kid reading magazines, I remember buying Faces, and it was a Kiss special, and it's like, since 1978, Cheap Trick have been throwing Kiss albums out to the crowd during their song Surrender, and it was like this big badge of honor.
Right. Yeah. Throwing away their records.
Right.
But that was like that was just that kind of stuff written in the book that really piqued my curiosity. It's like, yeah, because you see it from Cheap Trick's side, and then you see it from Gene and Paul side, who are probably walking around back then saying they name dropped us because we took them on their first Canadian tour and yada yada and that, right. Which I think you also wrote in the book that you saw that show in Winnipeg.
Yeah, that's right. Really, the first real concert that I ever saw was Kiss on the Love Gun tour. So that was summer of '77, and I'd never heard of Cheap Trick before. They only had one album out at the time, and they Yeah, they blew me away. So because I'd seen that tour and it was made such an impression on me that I really needed to look into that. There's always a couple of areas that I really want to focus in. I'm going to cover everything. I'm going to cover all the albums like we talked about, but there's always just a couple of things that it's like, I got to get to the bottom of this. Because, I'd always heard people say that when they saw Cheap Trick open for Kiss and when they played Dream Police, the crowd went wild. And then, I got to look into that. Like, did they really play Dream Police? Because I didn't even realize until I started really researching that In Color had not come out yet when they did that Kiss tour.
Oh.
But they took a break in recording the album to do that tour. So I think I listed that they did 14 dates in Canada and 14 in the States, including the last 3 LA shows, which were recorded for Kiss Alive 2. So that was just one area where I thought I really need to get to the bottom of this. I want to talk about these tour dates. I want to see when exactly they occurred, when the release dates of these albums were, and really talk about that. And it still comes up on Facebook every once in a while that someone will say, I don't know. Recently somebody said that Cheap Trick were opening for Kiss at the Budokan when they recorded their Cheap Trick's Budokan album, and that's just all kinds of wrong. But and it's not necessarily to make people feel bad or to prove that I'm right or anything like that. I just really deal with facts.
Right.
And there's so many people out there, even in this internet age, who, they'll just say something like that, or that, Cheap Trick and Kiss used to tour together for years and years. They didn't. It was one summer tour in '77, and then there's actually just one other show, which was 1979 in Houston, on the Dynasty tour. Right. So I just like to get to the bottom of it and just to discuss facts. So at least now the facts are in here. And so if someone's using this as a reference, or a younger person is doing a book report on Cheap Trick or something, the facts are in there. And I just like to clarify that kind of stuff. And the Whiskey 77 shows, that was another area that I really wanted to look into. I really wanted to get as much information about those shows as I could. And of course, now years later, they put out a Live at the Whiskey album. There it is, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So if you listen to the episode of Cheap Talk with Trick Chat that I did recently about that live album, I insisted on doing that episode. My friend Ken Mills runs that podcast. And then before that record even came out, I said, if you're going to be talking about that record, I need to be a part of it, because studying and researching the Whiskey 77 shows was a real big deal for me when researching the book. And this will be like the final, chapter kind of that. So with the Cheap Trick book, I would say those are two of the areas that I was really, really interested in getting as much information as possible.
Well, you did a stellar job. What are your thoughts on the Out to Get You Live record?
What, that one you were just holding up?
Yeah.
It's a 10 out of 10. It's essential.
Absolutely. It's a total essential.
They're so, they'd released a whole bunch of tracks from the Whiskey shows in the years since, all taken from different shows. There was an early show and a late show on the first day, early, late the second day, and then only one show on like the Sunday. But those tapes have been around. Some of them have been circulating as bootlegs. The band is just on fire. They're so, they're so great. It's more of a punk kind of energy. There's no smoothness yet. And I don't have a problem with the smoothness, but it's like, it sounds like what the first album sounds like, loud buzzing guitars and feedback, and the drums are all over the place. And it's just fantastic for people who only know them maybe from Budokan on. That could be a real wake up to, like, this is what these guys were really like when they were first starting out, and they're just breathing fire. It's fantastic.
I like it. I like it better than Budokan. I'm not knocking Budokan. I'm just saying, like, when I got this, it was the first time I ever heard these tracks, and it's like just a mind blower that they were already playing tunes as far that weren't even going to be out, like on Heaven Tonight, like a few years later. Like, they were just smashing these tunes out, and they were just airtight. I just can't believe they sat on the audio of this show for so many years. As soon as I seen that on Record Store Day, I thought, man, I got to get a copy of this. You know,
Well, and the fan response to it has been incredible. Like it's either people that maybe know a little bit more about the whiskey, like myself or some other big fans, or newer fans, or anyone who hears that record is blown away by it, you know. And for all the people who say that, you know, if you go see a Cheap Trick show, they have to play Dream Police, they have to play Surrender, or else they have to play The Flame. None of those songs are on that whiskey album, and there's no complaints about it. No, I haven't heard of one single person listen to that whiskey record and say, it's pretty good, but I really wish they'd done The Flame.
Or I Want You to Want Me.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. Nobody says that. Nobody cares. This stuff is it's so strong.
You know what? And Robert, that's probably the charm of that record, by those songs not being on there, because you can get into the depth of their musical stuff that they had going on.
Yeah. Oh, you okay, Deke?
Yeah, it's just the Fur Kids. Thanks. Cheers.
Cheers.
But, cheers. But
all right.
You know, just there we go. Well, you got the better stuff out of the three of us, so you win.
There you go.
There we go.
Left field.
But yeah, that's like such a killer album. I mean, Bunny Carlos did an awesome job on it, like compiling it together, the liner notes, the packaging, everything.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, that's what you want right there.
We're just going to do a close-up on your beer here for a moment. There we go. That is what you want to drink if you want to be like Robert Lawson.
Oh, Lord help you.
Lord help you. So I got a question for the two Cheap Trick experts here, because I'm kind of like, I mean, I have some Cheap Trick. I got the greatest hits in my collection. I got Heaven Tonight. I got Sex America Cheap Trick. And I think that's, and I got the Essential Cheap Trick, the 2 CD.
So Sex America Cheap Trick has, I think, 5 songs from the whiskey dates, but they're all different versions than are on the new album.
Okay.
There's no repeats. So
given what I own there, what would you guys recommend that I get for my next Cheap Trick purchase?
You don't have the debut?
I do not have the debut. I have Heaven Tonight, and I think that's the only studio album.
Right. Yeah. You need the debut for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a specific edition of that's got all the tracks that I want?
Are you buying on CD?
Yeah. Or whatever has the most tracks.
Yeah, there's an epic reissue. I mean, in the book, I talk about all the reissues and what bonus tracks are on there. So you'll find that in there. It's I don't know if it's just an epic reissue or Sony Legacy. That's it. It's a Sony Legacy. Okay. It's got like 5 or 6 bonus tracks. Okay. So there's that. I would say the 1997 self-titled is kind of the return to form, and those will set you up for a while.
Okay. So there you go. I always follow through on this, so I will place those on my next record store order.
But I love Heaven Tonight. Heaven Tonight was my first album. I still love that record.
I enjoyed listening to it. I played all my Cheap Trick this week, and I enjoyed Heaven Tonight very much.
We had Andy Curran on last week, and I threw it at him. What's your favorite Cheap Trick record? And he went with Heaven Tonight. I mean, you really, Robert, you really can't go wrong with the 70s output of Cheap Trick with those, what was it, the 4 studio records and Budokan, of course. And then, for me, this is the part I really kind of want to get into it with you a bit is I remember being a young fella and I bought All Shook Up. And then I also bought One on One. And then for some reason, I got out of Cheap Trick. I didn't end up getting their next 2 records after that. Next Position, Please. And what was the one after it? Standing on the Edge, is it? Or something like that. And then I got drawn in and I bought The Doctor because I seen the video for It's Only Love, which I think is still a great track. But that record, man, I
like that chapter of the book.
they burned me on that one, man. I'm sorry. I paid cash for that, so I can say it. I was like 6. I was probably 19 at the time, and I'm like, "What's with all this synth action?" So one of the first chapters I read in your book was that period of The Doctor, Lap of Luxury, Busted. Because you know what? As a fan, I still bought that stuff, but I'd always go back to those first 4 records.
Yeah, for sure.
in Budokan. And, it was just like, I was happy to see them when they came back with Lap of Luxury, and they almost rejuvenated their career. And, I was happy for them, and I thought, hey, this is cool. But that album just, didn't really resonate with me. And then, Busted comes out. I'm on board for Busted. I'm on board for Woke Up With a Monster. And it was like, just something was kind of missing. I'm sure there's a few people out there watching are probably going to think I'm crazy now and love those records. And hey, more power to you. But as a fan, discovering them when they're all out rocking, and then they go into the 80s and they kind of like really shifted gears. I get it. You got to play the game to, get with the times, I guess, with the Outside Riders and stuff, which I guess is Rick Nielsen's bone of contention with a lot of that. But, what are your views on it? Do you like, I know what you think about the Doctor and whatnot. Do you basically, I guess, to make a long story short, you find anything in those records that you say, yeah, man, there's some pretty good stuff here?
Well, there is some good stuff on some of those records. I mean, it is Cheap Trick, but
Yeah.
I also, I'm not one of those. Well, you guys have read my book, so I'm not going to just like blindly worship everything that any artist puts out. And we see that a lot online where people are saying Robin Zander's voice sounds exactly how it sounded in 1978. It's just not true. It's actually physically impossible.
Correct.
Not
Let's
that he
be
doesn't-
realistic here.
He still sounds good.
Right.
He sounds a lot better than some other guys that I could mention. Starchild.
Afraid so. Or
Oh, that guy. Oh man. So so I think it's still good, or it's valid to have a critical opinion. Otherwise,
absolutely.
like, are you even listening to the records? You just it's a 10 out of 10 before you've even opened it. Well, I don't really buy that. Then I don't think you're a fan, because you're not really listening. And it's not like the band of any band. It's not like they love every record that they've ever put out.
Right.
So why can't we have a bit of dissension? But you'll notice with those records, there's a lot of outside songwriters. I think that's a big problem. That's definitely not a choice of the band. When you have a guy as talented as Rick Nielsen, capable of songs like Mandocello and Heaven Tonight and Hot Love, and just such a wide array of material that he can create. And I think in the book, I say he's been reduced to a guest
appearance.
Writer, on his record. I mean, he's the lead guy in Cheap Trick, and he can't get a single co-write. Whereas on the early albums, he wrote everything, and then there's a couple songs that Zander gets a co-write and Peterson gets a co-write, but generally Rick wrote all that stuff. So you take away his greatest talent, songwriting, I feel, and then you give him these outside producers who don't really understand them. There's famously, what's the album where Bunn insisted on being credited with acoustic drums because they overlaid drum machine over his drums, or added extra electronic percussion that he hated, thought it was garbage, and I agree with him. So that's a unique credit on any, you don't see that on a normal record, that there's acoustic drums. That's his way of even rebelling and saying, I'm not a part of this.
That's a tell.
Yeah, right.
If I could add some perspective here, I think from what my understanding, Lap of Luxury and that whole thing with the co-writers was designed to bring Cheap Trick into the consciousness of younger folks. I was the target audience, and when I saw the flame on Much Music, I said, "Who are these guys?" The name didn't click that it was the same band that was throwing the Kiss records out.
Right.
And I couldn't believe this ballad. I was heavy into ballads at that time of my high school life. And the dude with the 5-neck guitar, I was really into guitars. This band just pushed all my buttons.
Sure.
I called my buddies up, like, you got to see this band called Cheap Trick. The guy plays a 5-neck guitar, and the ballad's incredible. So my buddy's like, yeah, that's a good band. So here we are. We became aware of Cheap Trick thanks to Lap of Luxury, not knowing any of that prior music at all. But it entered the consciousness at that point.
Sure. Yeah, there's no doubt that some of those hit records brought them more fans. There's no doubt about it. And
it did work. The strategy did work.
Yeah, and they got through it. Like that 97 self-titled album is a fantastic return to form. A lot of the fans were waiting for that kind of a record from them again, and that kind of righted the ship, you know.
Yeah. Every band seems to have those kind of, detours in the road where it takes a little while to get back to the straight ahead direction that they do best.
If you have any career that's going to go over 30, 40 years, there's going to be peaks and valleys. Like there's no, that's like any relationship, things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And there's going to, you're going to miss a few, but that's okay.
Yep.
Well, like you said, that 97 album is a pretty phenomenal album. I agree. I think that was my favorite record of theirs from One on One up to the 97 one. It's just like you wrote in your book, they kind of got dealt a shitty hand by the record company filing for bankruptcy as soon as it came out. So it didn't even have a real shot at anything. It's too bad. They should actually reissue that somehow.
They've talked about it. I think Bunn told me that they have the rights to it, but I don't know if they're ever going to actually do anything with it. But they could. They were going to reissue it at one point and change the title. So the label, you remember the name of the label they were on, Deke?
Red Ant.
That's right. So Bunn was saying they're going to reissue it, but change the name of it to Dead Ant.
Yeah, that's right. You wrote that. Yeah. That's awesome.
You know what? That little Red Ant segue is a perfect opportunity to cut to a clip. Deke knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Mutual friend of ours, I think you were watching that night, Robert, Mr. Sean Kelly, had a great Cheap Trick story that I just wanted to run for the viewers tonight. And it relates to Red Ant. But here is, from a few weeks back, Mr. Sean Kelly on his Cheap Trick story.
About Cheap Trick, who you might be talking about. That might be your next book. I don't know.
We're having him on the show June 18th.
Oh, okay, there you go. So we get tickets to go see Cheap Trick. I remember they had just put out this great record through an indie called Red Ant, and Red Ant went all out for Cheap Trick. Lots of promo. So they're giving away tickets, and we went, and they came with backstage passes. It was Cheap Trick and ZZ Top. So we go backstage, and I've got a copy of the 69 Industrial record because God knows nobody has ever approached anybody in Cheap Trick and said they were influenced by them and tried to give them a record, right? I think this is a very unique idea. Maybe not so much. Anyway, those guys were hilarious. Total smart asses, just hammering away on us, right? Like, but in a good nature way. And I'll never forget, like, I corner Rick Nielsen and I go, Rick, I'm a big fan, really inspired by your songwriting. I just wanted to give you a copy of my CD. And he takes a look at it and he goes, thanks, pal. This will be on the side of the highway in about 3 hours. And I'm like, what just happened? Anyway, it was cool. But you know what? The highlight was I got to have chicken wings with Bunny Carlos. So
that's the best.
That's a pretty good. And when Bunny is looking over and going, good wings. I'm going, good wings. Good night. It was great. So that's my little brush with Cheap Trick.
And speaking of which, here is the still competition.
And there's a picture in there from that night.
Mike, make the screen big, buddy.
You got it.
Yep.
Oh, man. You got it.
Well, hang on, guys.
Okay.
Who is that? Oh, I can't do this, man. I can never be a teacher. Here. Who is that
the goatee guy? Or the guy in the back?
Yeah, the guy in the back.
The clean cut guy?
The guy beside the left, to Bunny Carlos's left. This shot is probably post
right there.
Post Rick Nielsen breaking my heart, but pre chicken wings.
So
that's a great story.
So my story that I talk about in the introduction happened that same night.
Oh, wow.
So,
yes.
and that's the thing that I forgot that happened to Sean, because I think I was already so disheartened with what had just happened to me. So, but he's right. We went together. There's a few of us from Tower Records there. I also brought Dave Bedini from a band called Rio Statics. He was my plus one, and I know he gave a CD to Rick, but I don't know what happened with that. But what happened with me is I was trying really hard. What could I get them to sign? What's something cool to get them to sign? And I thought I'd bring the White Album. You guys know what that is?
Yes, I read about it, so now I know what it is from your book. It's a radio promo or a retail promo.
It's for radio.
It's a radio promo.
It's an interview. It's got songs, but it's interviews with 3 of the guys. Tom's not on it. And yeah, it's just the kind of thing that a radio station could play and make it sound like Cheap Trick are in the studio being interviewed. So it's a double gatefold, but the inside is completely white. And obviously, they call it the White Album, typical Cheap Trick humor. So I brought it to Rick, and I'm just so excited to meet him, and I want to tell him that I saw him on the 77 Kiss tour, and I just said, Rick, I'm a huge fan, love you from the beginning. Can I get you to sign my record? And right away he goes, what the hell is this? And he wasn't kidding, like the way that Sean, maybe he's a little nicer to Sean, but he wasn't kidding with me at all. And at the time, Rick was, he was a big guy back then. I'm short myself, and geez, I probably weighed 110 pounds at the time. So this guy's towering over me, and this is when he's got the sunglasses and the beard and the long goatee, these big padded shoulders. He's just towering over me, and I was stunned. I didn't even know what to say because I didn't know what was happening. And he goes, "You bring a fucking bootleg for me to sign at my own concert?" And I died. I didn't know. I had no idea what. I really didn't understand. I mean, I don't know how old I was at the time, but I was pretty young, and I was just blown away that he's mad at me right now. And a couple of friends of mine who were also worked in the industry, although they didn't work at Tower with Sean and I, kind of stepped in and said, "No, Rick, this is like a Canadian promo. It's a radio promo, and it's not a bootleg." So Rick just kind of signed it, and I was just so dejected. I was walking around, and I see Bun sitting at a table by himself. So I went over to him, and I just go, "Hey, Bun, can I get you to sign this record?" And Bun goes, "The White Album, that's a guess."
Nice.
And I said, "Can you go and tell Rick that?" Apparently he doesn't know about this. So if you look at that photo of us all backstage, and I mentioned this in the book, that because the photographer took a whole bunch of pictures, they only printed the one, but Rick is actually like leaning on me, or he has an arm around me or something, and I felt like he was going out of his way to kind of be physical with me, just to apologize, really, is what I felt he was doing.
You will just do a zoom in here, but this is from the book right here.
Right. So yeah, he's got an arm on me, and in some of the other photos, I think he had the arm around me, and I guess I took that as that's as close as an apology you're gonna get from Rick Nielsen. But it was horrifying. I was terrified, and I remember talking to Tom. I remember talking to Robin a little bit. But the rest of that night is just a blur because I don't know where I was when Sean was having chicken wings with Bun. I might have just been taking the subway home in tears or something. I was real upset. But no. And I don't think I've shown this before. So let's do a zoom in here. My friends like Ken Mills and Tracy Yashulis and Alyssa Pecorino. So this is,
check it out.
There we go.
Rick Nielsen.
And Bun actually included my name. But yeah, and again, Rick signed it really big and gave a real nice autograph on it. So I it was definitely pointed out to him that he overreacted and he didn't know what he was talking about. That he thought that this was a bootleg. It's Canadian only. It is a Canadian promo, but yeah.
But it's telling that Bun, who ended up becoming the band's sort of archivist, knew exactly what it was immediately. I guess he's just into that, and that's why that's his role.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Whereas obviously, and I've seen this with other artists. I mean, there's artists that I've asked them about songs or albums, and they barely even remember them. And I don't judge them for that, because I know they're so busy. They've been doing this for years. You know, it's not their job to think about this stuff all the time. It's my job to write about it. They're just supposed to put out the art. You know, they don't need to be, I mean, some artists probably do, but they don't really need to be looking themselves up on Discogs or something. You know, that's not their job. But anyway, it's a neat thing how that story, and Sean told that story in a new book that came out by Doug Broad.
Yep.
Called They're All a Little Crazy. And I had forgotten that happened to Sean. I'd totally forgotten that story, because I'm sure I was standing right next to him when it happened. But when I read it in Doug's book, I went, wait a sec, that's my story. That's what happened to me. How come I'm not in this book? So it's the same thing. It's the exact same night, the exact same event, within minutes of each other. The story that Sean told on your show and is in Doug Broad's book.
That's cool.
And I tell it in my book.
So Sean's a record store guy too.
Yeah, we were both working at Tower Records back then.
I didn't think, Deke, when we talked to Sean, I don't think that's something that came out. I had no idea. So we have this common bond.
Yeah, there you go. That's, I read that was another book that Sean showed on Facebook, was the Doug Broad book. And I picked that one up, and that was a great read too. How he interlinked all 4 bands in it. And he did have Sean Kelly right at the end of the book explaining the chicken wings and the 69 Duster down the highway story. But
I should ask Dave Bedini what Rick said to him.
Yeah, you should. Yeah,
probably I have to dick to him too.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. Dave Bedini's the nicest guy.
But I have to tell you that intro that you wrote for the Cheap Trick about what you went through meeting your hero and him just blowing what the heck. That's what got me to do a quick read into it, because that intro was so good. So I thought, you know what, this is going to be a good book. I didn't know you at the time, obviously, but I thought this guy is not going to kiss ass.
Yeah.
So, and you know what, like I said, that's awesome that you just, you called a spade. So my question being is, have you had any feedback from the Cheap Trick guys in regards to the book?
Here we go.
Uh-oh.
We don't have to if you don't want to. But if you want to.
Head down. I'm like...
I'm like Gene in the Tom Snyder interview, where he turns off camera to his manager and says, do we have to tell the truth here? I always love to reference that in interviews. No, I have. Well, Bun kept telling me that he was going to get back to me with what he thought about it. And, I try not to bug these guys too much. After a while, I just stop asking. But somebody got a picture of Bun holding the book. Nice. Of course, he held it upside down because he's a member of Cheap Trick, and that's, their sense of humor. But I met the guys backstage at a Kitchener show a couple years ago. So they, I approached Rick and Robin were standing together, and I approached them and I said, "Hey guys, I got to tell you," I introduced myself. I told them about the book, and I told them how it's, I just talk about the music. There's no gossip in there. There's no stories from ex-wives or, roadies and groupies. And they both seemed really interested in it. And although I had been told that someone who delivered some guitars to Rick's house once saw a copy of it on his coffee table book, on his coffee table. So I don't know if he just forgot about it or what. And Robin seemed really interested when I told him that not only do I talk about every Cheap Trick album, like Mike mentioned, but I talk about both solo Robin Zander albums. And, one of them is not even really released. So he was really interested in that. And then I went over to Tom and I gave him the same spiel, just told him, my intentions, and I'm a longtime fan, and the book is, not meant to rip anybody off or anything. So all 3 guys had the same question for me. Where's my copy? But I had been instructed the night before by management not to bring them any copies.
Oh.
I was going to. I set it up with Dax and with Carla, their road manager. So I was going to bring copies for all the guys. And I was really excited the night before because I thought this is going to be good. I'm going to get pictures of the guys all holding my book, and there's like how could this go wrong? And then it went really wrong. So I got this angry email from their management in Nashville saying I'm not allowed to give them copies. I'm not allowed to bring my copy to get them signed, which is something I always try to do. Like I've got almost all the Nazareth guys have signed that book. Because of COVID, I haven't had any Guess Who guys sign that book, but that's one of the things I was looking forward to the most. And I was told that if I'm seen with the book, whether I'm giving copies to the band or giving a copy to a roadie to try to get to the band, if I'm seen doing any of that, I'll be ejected from the venue immediately.
Jeez.
So that was hard to take, and to be honest, I still think about it sometimes, and I've been thinking about it lately, and it's really, maybe I'm a little more sensitive while I had COVID, but I thought about it recently, and I read a few things online about how great everything in Cheap Trick world is, and it really got to me. So I'm actually kind of taking a break from Cheap Trick, although I like talking about them with you guys. This might
sorry,
this might bring me back to Cheap Trick. But it was just such a tough thing, and it's really hard. How do you answer them when they're looking at me right in the face saying, "Oh, you didn't bring me one?" And I'm like, Rick, I want nothing more than to hand you a copy of my book. So what management told me is that if I want to give copies of the book to all 4 guys or 5, there's
Right.
5 guys in the band now, I have to mail all 5 copies to Nashville, to the management office, for them to look through it, and then they'll give them to the guys. And the email actually said, like, I'm not going to keep them. Like, I'll make sure they get to the guys. And I just said, why would I have to mail all 5 hardcovers all the way to Nashville? Like, I could send you a PDF if you think you have to check the content.
Mm-hmm.
But, at this stage in the band, in their history, they've been around for like over 40 years. They're all grown men. There's nothing in my book that's going to, make them cry or something. Like, it's not that kind of a book. So, I find this often with certain managers. They think that their acts need their hands held, and they think they need to be protected, and they're so precious and so delicate. Robin Zander, I can't do anything that's going to upset his day. And there's nothing in my book at all that's going to upset his day. No. So why are you so worried about this? And I just thought, I'm not mailing 5 hardcovers. Like that's not the point of all this. I want them to sign my copy. Yeah. I want to be able to give them copies and explain to them that this book is a love letter to your talent. And that coming from a longtime fan from the first album, there's nothing in this book. They might disagree with some of the things I say about some records, but
right.
like I said, they don't like some of those records. Right. So it's all fair game. There's nothing in there that's, in my opinion, that's going to make them think that I'm the enemy. And that email from management really made me feel like I was the enemy. And that's a hard thing to kind of swallow when you've spent so much time working on a book like this. You've spent how many hours listening to the band and following them, and how much money you've spent on them over the years. It was just really discouraging. And, it's an unfortunate thing to happen. I really didn't know what to say to them. I just said, I'm sorry. I was told I'm not allowed to give you guys copies, and they just went, oh, well, that's weird.
So like, clearly they're not necessarily behind that directive.
No,
I don't think so. Although, my friend Brian has this theory that Cheap Trick are behind everything that they do. They just don't want to deal with it. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't, and I wouldn't say that, but his opinion is that, but they just don't want to be the bad guys. So they get management to do that kind of thing, saying, hey, if this guy brings that book backstage, we don't want to have anything to do with it. But you're the one who has to go tell him that. So I hope that's not the case. I hope that if I ever saw, and I don't think Tom cares, one way or another. Like I said about the other guys, I'm not going to hurt Tom in some way. He's been doing what he's been doing for decades.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do, Not that I would try to do anything to hurt these guys. Like, I'm just writing about the records. So whether Rick and Robin are kind of using management to be the bad guys with me, I don't know. That's Brian's opinion. I would hope not. But I would also hope that if I ever had a one-on-one with Robin, I could kind of talk to him about it a little bit and just, you know, just to a little bit of an acknowledgement from them would go a long way with me.
Yeah.
You know, if someone even took a book backstage at a Cheap Trick show and got a picture of Rick holding it, that would make my day. And I'd probably really be able to finally put all this negativity behind me. But sometimes it comes up and it's still a fresh wound. And it sucks.
Yeah. I noticed a couple of things on your Facebook side. I was kind of hesitant but I wanted to talk about Cheap Trick. You know, it's kind of a shitty timing here that we have you on, as Kevin says, while you're going through some Cheap Trick PTSD. But maybe I can shift gears to the Guess Who real quick again.
Yeah,
why not? I remember growing up and not knowing anything about music, but being introduced to the Guess Who through my mother, and huge Burton Cummings fan she is. I remember in the late 80s, he had kind of a comeback track called Take One Away that I really liked. I just kind of wondered, get your opinion on that song and album.
I love it. You're right. He hadn't had anything out for a little while. And then the Plus Signs album came out. And
Plus Signs, that was it.
Yeah, and he had a big hit with that song, which was written by a friend of his in Winnipeg, like years before. Burton had actually been doing like a solo acoustic version of it on the Variety Club Telethon. A few times he'd performed it like years before the Plus Signs album. But I love that. I love that record. I love that's his only album in his whole catalog that there isn't a single ballad on it.
Ah, interesting.
And the tour for that album was really big too. He actually played 3 sold out nights at Ontario Place here in Toronto. I went to one of them and recorded it. I've got a kind of a crappy recording of it, but at least it covers. It was a long set too. It's like a 2-hour show, tons of hits. I think he did, like, I don't know if there's like 12 songs on Plus Signs, he did like 8 or 9 of them.
Wow. So
he's really pushing the new record, and that was a fun time to be a Burton Cummings fan. It's always a fun time to be a Burton Cummings fan.
That's cool.
Well, he's probably one guy who'll gladly accept your book, no problem. So.
Oh, well, sure. He's all over it. Yeah. So I sent him a copy, and nice. As I said, he said some really kind things about it. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And the one Bachman record, I really liked his Any Road record.
Yep.
With
cool.
Perry Town and geez, what was the other stuff on there? I'm brain farting right now, but that was a very good album too, Randy Bachman.
Yeah, that was kind of a comeback for him, because I don't think he had any kind of radio hits or anything for a while. And then when he did that song with Neil Young, that and a video, that definitely got him a lot of airplay again.
Yep, Much Music. We're all over that for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, but great reads, man. So, folks, definitely got to get these books, man, and do the deep dive.
Oh, wait a sec. That's not right.
Well, buy that book too.
Yeah.
Buy some Martin Popoff books while you're at it. Buy some Sean Kelly books while you're at it. Why not? These are all good books.
This is a Martin Popoff book that I contributed to.
Ooh, let's get a close up. There we go.
I don't know if you can still get this one, but I'm definitely in this one.
Nice.
That's cool. There goes some neighbors walking by.
Yeah, there you go. Mikey on surveillance.
Okay, so Kevin here has a question. He has old man eyes and uses e-readers. So who gives you a better cut, Amazon or Kobo?
The profit on the ebooks is so slim. I don't think it matters. It's, I think they sell it for, what do they sell it for? Like $1.50 or something like that on there. So I probably get half of that or something. I don't know. Ebooks are, if he says he has old man eyes, I just have old man because I don't even know. I hardly know what an ebook is.
Yeah,
I'll get my wife to explain it to me maybe, but I'm not. When I look at my sales on Friesen Presses, I have a private author account where I can track all the sales. I look at paperback, I look at hardcover. I barely even look at the ebooks. I could sell 25 ebooks and it's $50 or something. And I'm looking at bigger numbers than that when I look at the paperbacks and hardcovers. $6.99.
There you go. I would rather spend my money on a paper copy if I'm spending over $6 really. But that's just me.
It's harder to get the author to sign the ebook. or any of the artists. I used to work with a guy at Tower when I was there with Sean. He was a big blues guy, and he had this. That's not going to happen. He had this big encyclopedia of the blues, and it just had like a page on basically every major blues artist. And what he would do is anytime that he had a chance to meet them at a club or at a show, he'd get the artist to sign their page in the book. And I thought that was such a cool thing to do. So that's where I got the idea of having having all the artists, if I can, having them sign my book. Like my Nazareth book looks really sweet with all those band signatures in there. There's just a couple still that I have to track down. And it's just kind of a cool thing. So if I ever see you guys, bring your Cheap Trick books and I'll sign them.
Nice. Well, post-pandemic, things can be hopefully a little different.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Deke's up in Thunder Bay. He promised to come down for the summer of 2023, so we'll get our books signed then.
Ah, perfect.
Make a road trip of it. Yeah. Big box of stuff to bring down for all you guys to sign.
Sure, we'll hit up left field.
Yeah.
Nice.
For sure. But, well, Robert, thanks so much for coming on and just talking rock with us and talking your books. And by all means, if whatever you're writing next or whatever you're planning to work on or promote, reach out to either me or Mike. We'll always have you back on as a guest, pal.
Sure, sounds great. I'm glad we were able to get those technical difficulties out of the way early on.
Yes.
We got it sorted now. So I look forward to talking with you guys again. If anything comes up that you think I might be able to contribute to, maybe we'll do a round table with Martin or something.
Oh, that would be sweet. That would be sweet. Yeah, he promised to come back if we can come up with, some kind of band show that he can't do with some of his other YouTube projects. He's got so many.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be cool. Maybe I don't know, Deke. This is maybe a long shot, but it might be worth revisiting Done with Mirrors at some point, maybe with Robert.
Ah,
I would love that.
Yeah, because I was the dissenting voice, and you guys really gave me hell that night.
But you see, Robert, that's the thing. Like the difference. Like we talked about it with Mike before. We had had a buddy of mine on with us, and Done with Mirrors just hit us at that time when we were 19. This Aerosmith sloppy rock record comes out against the tide of everything else that was coming out sonically at the time by all these other bands, and it just hit us at that moment. It was like it's like they just pushed the record button in the garage and just let it rip. And that record just resonated with us. So when I got to know Mike about 8-9 years ago now, I said, man, I love Done with Mirrors, and Mike's like, no. So this has always been, but you can't agree on everything. So, we always bust each other's balls about it. So, it's fun.
Sure. It's all perspective, right? Like Done with Mirrors was where I kind of came on board with Aerosmith. It was let the music do the talking. But as an album, it just, I don't know, man. It's like we all have different buttons to push, and that one just doesn't push any of mine except for basically that one track, which is basic. If I had 2 tracks from Aerosmith for the rest of my life, it would be Chip Away the Stone and Let the Music Do the Talking. Those are my top 2 Aerosmith tracks of all time right there. Kevin is trying to also push some buttons here. He's asking if you have any opinions on Van Halen's 5150 before you go. That's another one where Deke and I,
I did buy that record when it came out. But that's the only. I've never owned it on CD. I've never owned any of the Hagar albums in any way. It's the original 6 albums with Dave for me all the way. And it's not just, people always say, well, Sammy's technically a better singer. Dave is the front man, whatever. I think Dave pushed Edward in ways that Sammy's like too nice a guy to push. So I think the music changed. Although, again, I've not heard most of those later records. But there's a level of creativity on the earlier records that I definitely didn't hear on 5150. That's just but again, I don't think it's necessarily a vocalist versus vocalist thing.
Right.
And I feel the same way about Bon Scott and Brian Johnson. People always say, well, Bon was more fun, but Brian's more this or that. Yeah, but the music changed after a while as well. That has to be part of the discussion. I'm convinced that Brian was never even a member of AC/DC. I think he's a paid employee, like many, replacement members are.
There's certainly evidence that would support that, like the very quick way that he was dismissed when he had the hearing issues. That certainly is a tell.
Well, and it wasn't, what was happening when they took away his songwriting input from the band.
Because that happened around Razor's Edge, I think. Yeah.
Like at a certain point, they just told him, you're not needed in the lyrical department anymore, which seems like a power move that you wouldn't necessarily do with a band member who you respect. But I think that the music just changed. I'm sure Brian's a really great guy too. I mean, he seems like it. He's always having a laugh.
Yeah.
But I feel like the music changed as well as the vocalist. Like, yeah, I do like Dave better than Sammy, but Dave's more of a fighting spirit as well as kind of the partying aspect. And I think his relationship with Edward is what created those records. It's not just about who's singing on the records, Yeah.
It's Edward.
Because I think right. I think Edward can tell Sam, no, we're not doing that. Or yes, we're doing that. With Dave, it's going to be a discussion and maybe even an argument. Yeah. But at least they're both going to be passionate about what they're saying, and they're going to fight for what they believe. I know, Edward came up with this new guitar sound that he wanted to use, and he didn't like the fact that they used it on like Dancing in the Streets or something.
Right.
But he's still that kind of energy between them is what led to the times that they were really magic.
Right. 100%. The conflict, the friction, the push, the pull.
Yeah. And that, that goes back to Mick and Keith, and, there's a lot of bands that are like that. Yeah. They're not supposed to be best friends. They're supposed to, but what they are supposed to do is really care about what they're doing. And if they care so much about it that sometimes things get a little heated, the art will benefit.
I'm convinced that Gene and Paul are not friends at all. Not even, like you said, they're co-workers. Like you mentioned about, Gene and Paul, they're co-workers. That's it.
Yeah, sure. At this point, it's a corporation that almost runs itself. They couldn't step away from it if they wanted to.
Right.
They're stuck with each other whether they like it or not. I know there was a period for years where, or maybe not for years, but for a while where they weren't speaking.
Gene and Paul?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
And then there was an earthquake in LA, and one of them called the other to see if they were okay. And that was the first kind of like thawing of the ice a little bit.
I had no idea.
You ever see that interview? You can find it on YouTube where Paul hates Gene. It's a non-makeup era, and the interviewer asks Paul something, and Paul says, well, you could be one of these idiots that just goes around bragging about all the groupies that you sleep with, but what would, and Gene turns to him and says, what are you doing, man? Like, why are you saying these things? And Paul won't even look at him. Like, they're standing side by side.
Wow.
Paul's looking at the interviewer, and then Paul just kind of repeats it. He says like the same kind of thing, like just bragging about girls and money and stuff. And Gene stops the interview, and again, he just turns to him and says, what are you doing? Like, it's really hostile between them. I mean, it's from years ago. It's from years ago, but you can easily find it. It's on YouTube for sure.
Well, even as recently as, maybe a decade ago, you'd see Paul making statements like, when someone is in your family and they make like a really embarrassing move and they're really embarrassing the entire family, they're still your family. And I think that was kind of like in regards to when Gene did his asshole solo record, which really, that was kind of embarrassing. And I think Paul was just like trying to make it clear that this, he wanted no association with that weird whole asshole period of Gene Simmons.
Yeah, sure.
But
No, we didn't
always-
even get to talk about movies. That's gonna have to be a
Next time.
separate show.
Well, you know what? Why don't we close quickly in a movie question? Is that cool? Deke, you want to do that? Close on a movie question?
Well, all I'll add about like the yin and
Okay.
yang, what Robert mentioned with like, you know, Roth and Eddie and Paul and Gene, you can say the same thing about Tyler and Perry.
Right.
Sure.
I don't think they even like each other.
Sure.
I've seen them Aerosmith, I think 5 or 6 times, and I know at each show, at least once during it, you'd see Steve Tyler yelling at Joe probably to turn down his amps.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
and it was just over stuff like that, right? So,
Right.
but without each other, nobody cares.
Yeah, and those early Aerosmith records wouldn't be as great as they are without that conflict.
Exactly.
You know,
Right.
that's
Yeah, full of friction. But anyways, Mikey, what's your movie club?
Okay, so I know you're a King Kong connoisseur. We chatted about this very, very briefly. And you have been enthused about the Jeff Bridges King Kong, which I don't think I've ever seen it.
Oh.
And, you know, my old man used to say, you know, there's only one King Kong, and it's the original. And I'm sure you've heard that from other people too. But you've been
Sure.
really enthused about the Bridges one. So quickly, before we end the show tonight, sell me on the Bridges King Kong.
well, you know, it is of its time. It came out in 1976, so there's a few things on it that are in it that are maybe you know, kind of dated by now, but all the special effects are practical, and
Okay.
the Kong is generally a guy in a monkey suit, but it's Rick Baker, who
Okay.
is, you know, one of the ultimate special effects and makeup guys.
Yes,
So
legendary.
he like created the costume, and I just think he looks totally badass in it. And it is a modern retelling. Like when Peter Jackson did his King Kong, his is set in 1933, like the original.
Yes.
So the 76 one is set in 76, and some people might not understand that there's dialogue about the oil shortage and things like that were happening in the States. But I saw it theatrically when it came out.
Oh, wow.
So I was a kid. I mean, I was probably way too young to be seeing it. My sister, who's 2 years younger than me, was with us. So I don't know what was up with that. But it just made a great impression on me. This is the first time it's been out on Blu-ray in North America, and it's got all kinds of bonus features and stuff. So I was just excited. It's one of those things from being a kid that that just really captured my imagination. But like I say, Kong looks great in it. There's the scene where he rips a subway train off the tracks. Made an impression on me in 1976, and it still does. I still think it's totally badass. It's just great. And now, of course, he climbs to the top of the World Trade Center, which some people might not even know what that is anymore.
Yes.
So it's a little timely with, you know, that kind of stuff. But it's just a lot of fun. I like it a lot. Although I like almost all the Kong movies. I'm as you said, I'm a big Kong guy.
Nice.
Do you guys know this movie?
Right, Mikey just froze with excitement. We lose Mike.
He's
Mikey.
stunned.
Yeah. Well, I knew this day would come where I'd finally take over the show.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. I got rid of him. He's right frozen. Classic. But yeah, man, thanks so much for oh, there he is.
There he is.
Oh, I lost my spot.
Sorry, Wi-Fi went out.
That's it. I told Robert I finally got rid of you.
You know, Deke, I do owe you an apology. I will say this publicly. I owe Deke an apology. Last week, Andy Curran said that he would be my new co-host here, and I reacted very quickly, and I said, Deke, you're fired. Deke, you're rehired.
Hey, you know what? If I'm going to be fired and replaced by a guy like Andy Curran, I'm totally okay with that, man.
What happened when I went out? Were you guys able to continue?
Yeah.
Okay, so apparently if the Wi-Fi goes out, the stream continues. We're learning.
So that's why I finally told Robert I finally got my own show.
Yeah.
But, Thanks so much again, Robert.
Yes.
You reach out to us. You come back anytime, man. You're always welcome here. And thanks for sharing your stories and your books. And come on, everybody, like get out there and support local writers. Track down those books, read them. Great stuff. And by all means, stay in touch.
Buy it from there, Friesen Press. We've been told by one of the viewers that their packaging is more environmentally friendly than Amazon's. So go ahead, buy it straight from Friesen Press.
There we go.
Thank you for appearing, Robert. As usual, let's go out on a music video.
And thanks to your wife for playing the Department of IT to get you online. So,
I'd be lost without her in many ways other than just IT.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much to Mrs. Lawson for making tonight possible. Oh, and everybody tune in tomorrow at 1:00 when we have Jacob Moon on the show. Can't wait to talk to Jacob Moon. You know him from some of those Rush box sets.
Nice.
So again, thank you, Robert. We'll talk to you very, very soon, and we will go out on a music video. Let us go out on a favorite here at the show. This is Clockwork Orange, Victim of Changes. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Ciao.
A little bit of Judas Priest. You know that you are driving me insane. Leaving you kisses your wheels to laugh and gets right to my brain. You try to fight your way through life, try to get to new direction. Another woman's got a plan. She can get you lose infection. Oh yeah. Takes enough, but you ain't got so. Things are better when she's a fool. Take another look around, you're not going anywhere. You realize you're getting old, and no one seems to care. You try to fight your way again, try to get some love. Another woman's got a man. She can get you. Takes enough, but you ain't got enough. Things are better when she gets through. You man, fool man, waste some. I want to know why is it wine? Get up, get out. You know you really feel weird. I've had enough. I've had enough. Good God, fuck me. was wonderful when she was mine, and she was wonderful when she was mine. Changes come over her body. She doesn't suit me anymore. Changes come over her body. She doesn't suit me anymore.